Hello everybody, I'm Gwen Campbell-Mindes. Welcome to Books I Should Have Read a Long Time Ago, desultorily chosen based on how I felt at the time, but really probably should have read them sooner. Been a while, back to the Arabian Nights. As always, this is not the cover because the cover on Gutenberg is unprepossessing. We are on book 9, and I'm not sure how this is going to go because there are apparently 16 volumes, but we're already on, by the end of this, on, night 980 something, so I'm not really sure where all the extra books are coming in, but anyways. In this edition, we just had a story about a man who the last story of it was about a man who he has two brothers, and they split their their inheritance up evenly, and the two brothers go on a trip to make their way, and their brother stays at home and becomes extremely wealthy, and they show up poverty stricken and desperate, and so he says, oh well, bad stuff happened to you, it's unfortunate, here, move in with me, it's fine. So they do their thing, and then they talk him into going traveling, and he has adventures where he kills a dragon by hitting it with a rock. I don't know how that worked. He's saving a snake from a dragon because the dragon is about to commit felony sexual assault against the snake. And so he kills the dragon with a rock, and then the snake turns into a woman who says, hey, thanks for not letting the dragon do bad stuff to me. I don't even know. The jinn are weird. Anyways, so he does that, and then they travel a little more, and then he finds his way into a city of stone people, in which there is left only one young woman. Everyone else was instantly turned into stone, leaving the everything just as is, and she has been living alone, surviving off of one magic pomegranate per day, because she professed to become Muslim at the last possible second when she was 7 years old, when some guy showed up because he was angry that everybody in the city was worshipping idols, so he turned them all to stone because reasons. Anyways, so she agrees to marry him because the guy who turned everybody to stone except for her had told her that this guy was gonna come and be her husband. So they trek off, and his brothers are so jealous of the fact that he got a hot chick who has been living alone, surviving off of pomegranates for 27 years, that they pitch him overboard, because they're like that. Anyways, so he gets rescued by the woman who was a snake, and she plans to murder his brothers out of revenge for him, but he says, no, please don't kill my brothers, they're still my brothers and I love them. So she says, okay, I will turn them into dogs, and you are going to beat them until they pass out every single night, and if you don't, I will beat you, and then I will beat them. So, he tests this a few times, and she shows up and beats him until he passes out, and then beats his brothers, who are, dogs, until they pass out. Anyways, so it's a thing. This is, of course, the story explaining why a guy who was visiting this, our sort of protagonist's house, why this guy saw him beating a couple dogs and then apologizing to them and feeding them, and weird. Anyway, so the dogs eventually get turned back into humans because of the intercession of the local caliph, because he is a quote-unquote commander of the faithful, as so many of them are known. So he has magic intercession powers with the jinn. I don't get it, but it doesn't really matter. And after spending 12 years as dogs, they're still bitter and angry and decide that they're going to murder their brother, which they try to do, and don't succeed. It's a whole thing. These stories are so weird. What's particularly weird, of course, what's fascinating, of course, is that This story with the two dogs and the beating and the, split up, this is actually a story that was, like, told several books back. Don't ask me when. I know I've seen this one before. This one also includes the story of Abdullah the fisherman and Abdullah the merman and Abdullah the caliph, where there's this fisherman who is having trouble making enough money off of fishing, and eventually he winds up catching a merman in his fishing net, and the merman basically says, well, if you get me fruit, because I can't get fruit from the ocean, because if I go up on land I will dry up and die, which would be unpleasant and would mean I didn't get my fruit, I can give you stuff like pearls, which are completely useless to those of us living in the water. So basically he pulls up a bunch of, valuable stuff out of the ocean floor, and the merman trades it to the fisherman for, like, fruit and stuff. Anyways, eventually the fisherman becomes wealthy and, like, a whole bunch of things. The thing is, the merman is apparently a Muslim and offers to, and basically takes the fisherman with him, gives him a magic ointment that lets him breathe underwater, and takes him visiting all over under the ocean, because he wants to give the fisherman something to carry for him on his behalf to Mecca. Basically, because the merman can't get out of the water without, like, drying up and flaking away into nothing, he can't go on pilgrimage. And since the Hajj is like a foundational pillar of what you do when you're a good Muslim, he's sort of in a problem, because you can't go on pilgrimage somewhere if you frizzle away to nothing before you get there. So he says, I want you to, like, bring this thing for me over to Mecca, and you can put it down and sort of pray on my behalf, because I won't be able to actually physically get there. And so they have this whole thing where they go swimming everywhere, and I'm leaving out a lot because there's a lot in this story. There's a caliph who, like, after the fisherman becomes wealthy, says, wow, people are going to be so jealous of the fact that you're getting super wealthy by handing a basket of fruit over to the ocean every day, that we should probably give you enough rank to stand up to that. So he, like, rises him up to Grand Vizier territory just because he got rich giving fruit to a merman. Because why not? Anyways, like, there's that, and there's the side thing with the baker, and, like, it's a whole thing. And anyway, so the merman is taking him everywhere, and they run across a bunch of people who are having a hootenanny of a good time, and he says, well, what's going on over there? Is somebody getting married or something? No! It's a funeral! Their children have died! Look at how happy they are! And the fisherman is basically saying, well, no, when people die on land, we're sad and tear our clothes and beat our breasts and wear sackcloth and ashes. And the merman says, well, how dare you claim to be Muslims? How dare you? You know that they are going on to heaven. Why would you be mourning? Get out of here and I'm taking back my thing. I don't want a non-Muslim like you, a false professor of the true religion, carrying my thing over and praying to God. They might take it wrong. So, like, it's a thing, and, it's the fundamental illogic of people who say, well, why aren't you celebrating? And the answer is, of course, funerals are not for the dead, funerals are for the living. The living are sad because for the next however many years, even if you do believe in an afterlife, whether, if you believe in an afterlife, fine, but you're not seeing that person again until you join them in the afterlife. So if they're dead now, and you live for another 40 years, that's 40 years you're not seeing that person. And given that people have a tendency to cry when they leave their kids at kindergarten for the first time, it seems a little odd that people don't understand that, grieving can be, even if you are genuinely of the belief that somebody has gone on to a wonderful, joyous reward of eternal whatever. Um, so, it's just sort of this complete lack of empathy. But anyway, so, the fisherman shows up at the palace, and the king and the caliph is like, dude, you've been missing for like a month? Where have you been? Well, my merman friend came, and he decided to take me hither, thither, and yon, and then he got really mad when I told him we're sad when people die. And the caliph is like, yeah, you probably shouldn't have done that. And, the fisherman is like, yeah, on the other hand, I am now a wealthy man, so I guess I came out more or less ahead in the grand scheme of things. I'm good. And yeah, that's the end of that. It's a story that sort of, it seems to be going somewhere right up until it doesn't. Uh, I continue to really enjoy these just because they're fascinating. It's not just the difference in culture. It's not just the fact that every time I read this, I can see exactly where C.S. Lewis got the Calormen from, because of course the dialogue of this is deeply alike unto, and therefore clearly an imitation by, or of, or whatever, of, that the Calormen dialogue and worldview and everything is clearly deeply inspired and sort of ripped off of this in the Narnia series. It's really, really constantly visible. But with all of that, it's a fascinating look into a culture deeply separated from us by space and time. Well, from me by space and time. The values, the worldview, all of it. It's really, it's really, really fascinating. The second to last story in this, you have this weird thing with this woman who is trying to convince her husband to divorce her by stealing something that he has, and giving it to another person to show her husband, saying, here, look at this thing that I bought. And then when he storms home saying, thinking, oh, well, she, gave away my thing, she has taken it back and put it back in its regular place, and he comes home and he's like, oh, okay, somebody just happened to make a knife that looked exactly like my knife. Huh, that's weird. And, it's sort of this thing, I'm going to make him so suspicious of me that he'll divorce me, she says. And then she does a thing that makes him suspicious, and then promptly does a thing to prove to him that she is beyond reproach. Over and over and over again. And she gets real frustrated that he's not divorcing her. And it's this weird misbegotten thing of, well, no, you just keep proving to him that you are not being unfaithful or problematic or whatever, because he comes home and his thing is still there. So what are you doing? So eventually she gives up and runs off with her young swain, who carts her back home, and his parents talk some sense into him, basically saying, listen, if she cheated on her husband with you and did all this crap to him, she's going to do exactly the same thing to you. This is dumb. So they lock her up in a tower, and when her husband catches up to them all, the father it's a whole thing. He winds up, the husband winds up murdering her because reasons. It's wild. The whole thing is just wild. I'm stopping there because I'm basically hitting the end of my time, so that's everything, I guess. And I will see you all next week.